Let's jump right in. Number 8. Bowling. In 14th century England, there was a dangerous activity, a societal plague threatening national security that had to be banned. I'm talking about throwing a ball at some wooden pins. That's right, I'm talking about bowling. See, King Edward III really needed his army to focus on archery for their upcoming trip to France. But instead of practicing their aim, his soldiers were busy getting strikes and spares. Furious at the distraction, the king passed a law banning bowling and similar useless games. It wasn't because he hated the noise or those gross rental shoes. It was because bowling was distracting his men from their most important job, pinning enemies to the wall with arrows. That ban stayed on the books in various forms for hundreds of years. So, next time you gutter ball, just remember, you're pulling a move that once annoyed a powerful king. Pretty badass, right? Number 7. Eating potatoes. Imagine living in 18th century France. You invite friends over and serve them some fries. Congrats! You've just been shunned by the whole village and maybe even accused of witchcraft for bringing devil's fruit into your home. When potatoes first arrived in Europe from the Americas, people were super suspicious of this lumpy, dirty tuber. They thought it caused leprosy, fevers, and all sorts of diseases because it wasn't mentioned in the Bible. The panic was so real that the French government officially banned potatoes in 1748. Everything changed thanks to a scientist named Antoine-Augustin Parmentier, who pulled a genius reverse psychology stunt. He planted a field of potatoes, put armed guards there during the day, then quietly pulled them back at night. Villagers got curious, figured anything guarded that well must be valuable, and started stealing them. Eventually, they realized these things weren't poisonous, they were actually delicious. Basically, your favorite fries only became popular because of a giant, orchestrated heist. It's a masterclass in marketing and human curiosity. Number 6. Drinking coffee. For millions, a new day doesn't start without a cup of coffee. But historically, this wake-up juice was once seen as a dangerous drug, a tool of the devil that could topple empires. In 16th century Mecca, coffee was banned because leaders feared it sparked radical ideas and political gossip. In Europe, some religious leaders even called it Satan's bitter invention. King Gustav of Sweden hated coffee so much he ran an experiment to prove it was poisonous. He took a pair of identical twins who were on death row. One had to drink 3 pots of tea daily, and the other 3 pots of coffee to see who died first. Ironically enough, the doctors watching the experiment, and even the king himself, died before the prisoners. The coffee drinker actually lived to be 83. So, next time you sip your iced coffee, remember you're enjoying a sin that kings and priests once tried to ban. That's one rebellious way to start your morning. Number 5. Pinball. Imagine you're in 1940s New York City. In the middle of the city, there was a vice so corrupting that the mayor went on a full-blown crusade against it, using flippers to hit a metal ball. Yeah, I'm talking about pinball. NYC Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia had a serious vendetta against these machines, believing they weren't games of skill. He thought they were rigged gambling tools run by the mob to steal kids' lunch money. He called them devil's playthings and launched an all-out war. Police raided arcades, seized thousands of machines, and in public press events, the mayor personally took a sledgehammer to them. This ban lasted for decades in major U.S. cities. Everything changed in 1976 when a pinball legend named Roger Sharp proved in court that it was a game of skill, not luck. He did the impossible, calling his shot like a pro athlete and nailing it perfectly. So, next time you play pinball, remember you're participating in an art form that used to be illegal. Number 4. Christmas. There was a time in some of the most religious places on Earth when putting up a tree, singing carols, or even saying Merry Christmas could get you fined. That's right, there was a literal war on Santa Claus. The culprits were the 17th century Puritans in England and America. These guys were ultra strict, and they seriously hated Christmas. To them, it wasn't a biblical holiday. It was a pagan festival full of drinking, gambling, and laziness. They thought such wild partying was basically an insult to God. In 1659, the Massachusetts Bay Colony officially passed a law banning Christmas. If you were caught taking the day off for partying, you'd be fined 5 shillings. It took a massive rebranding campaign to turn Christmas from a wild party into the cozy family holiday we know today. Basically, Christmas had to survive a PR crisis and a total marketing overhaul. Number 3. Women's suffrage. Okay, we've talked about some silly stuff, but this next one is definitely not funny. For most of history, in almost every civilization, half the population was banned from one of their most basic rights: voting. The excuses they used to justify this were endless and, frankly, ridiculous. They claimed women were too emotional and lacked the logic for politics. They argued that women's brains were just different and that their natural place was at home, not dealing with government business. For centuries, women weren't seen as independent citizens, but as property belonging to their fathers or husbands. It took hundreds of years of protests, hunger strikes, and sacrifice to finally win the right to vote, mostly within the last century. It's wild that people thought letting women vote was crazy, while being perfectly fine with watching thousands kill each other for sport. Number 2. Wearing purple. Imagine heading out in a purple t-shirt. In ancient Rome, you'd likely get arrested for impersonating royalty and challenging the emperor. The issue wasn't the color itself, but how rare and valuable it was. The legendary Tyrian purple, which never faded, was made from the slime of a rare Mediterranean sea snail. You had to process tens of thousands of snails just to get a single gram of dye. That made the dye worth way more than gold. Because it was so rare, Roman law decreed that only the emperor could wear full Tyrian purple. High-ranking officials were allowed at most a purple stripe on their robes. Anything more for a commoner wasn't just a flex. It was a challenge to the state and could get you branded a traitor. So next time you rock a purple fit, remember you're enjoying luxury even Roman millionaires couldn't touch. Number 1. Divorce. Today, ending a marriage usually just takes some paperwork and a bit of emotional baggage. But for most of Western history, divorce was virtually impossible, strictly banned by both church and state. Once you said "I do," you were pretty much locked in for life. To the church, marriage was a sacred vow to God that no human could break. To society, it was a legal and economic contract meant to keep families and property lines stable. Easy divorce was seen as a total threat to social order and morality. Getting a divorce meant proving something extreme like infidelity or severe abuse. The process was expensive, humiliating, and rarely worked. King Henry VIII even had to break England away from the Catholic Church just to dump his wife and remarry. Most normal people didn't have that kind of leverage, so even if divorce today is messy, at least you don't have to start a new religion to get one. I'd call that progress. That's a wrap for today's Brain Snack. We've got even crazier topics lined up for next time. Hit subscribe to save your seat. Enjoy.